Here is, by a long shot, the worst ever Screen Rant bad take I have ever witnessed.
Screen Rant's Bad Takes.
Stan Lee created the X-Men out of laziness.
Oh my hell. Sorry.
Even the greatest comic writer in history gets lazy, and Stan Lee admitted he wrote the X-Men to avoid writing the most important part of any story. I'm going to read this entire article. It's that bad.
Pay attention to where he admits that he was lazy. I had to read this article, reread it twice. It was like, doesn't make any sense. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay.
So stupid. So dumb. I have it on mine right now, and I'm looking at it, and I just this is like.
Don't give them more clicks than they deserve.
The X-Men are one of the most beloved superhero teams in the Marvel Universe, but Stan Lee's reason behind the creation of the team stemmed not from a desire to tell a unique story, but out of sheer laziness. The famed comic creator is known for his many contributions to comics: Iron Man, The Incredible Hulk, and sorry, did I just get a notification, or was that someone else? Okay, The Incredible Hulk, and perhaps his most famous creation, Spider-Man. But the X-Men were created to fix a simple problem, one that Lee had trouble solving every time he spearheaded the creation of a superhero. In Marvel's nascent? Is that it? Okay.
Yeah.
In Marvel's beginnings, Lee's formula for creating superheroes was to introduce a human element into the extraordinary. The Incredible Hulk didn't have control over his abilities. Iron Man was an arms dealer looking to atone for his past sins. These are all like really good ideas, first off. And Spider-Man was just a teenage superhero who notably wasn't a sidekick, okay? But the origins were beginnings to appear. Oh, the origins of these superheroes were beginning to appear distressingly similar. First off, those are all pretty unique. Okay. Cosmic rays for the Fantastic Four, gamma bombs for and radioactive spider bites could only satisfy readers so long before they realized that they were all essentially the same origin, right? Powers from a rapidly introduced plot device. Lee needed something more, and he found it in the genesis of the X-Men. We're going to pause here.
Can you pause? Because
yes.
The rapidly introduced plot device is a staple of the genre.
Yeah.
Like,
that's what. Yes, we know. Yeah, that's why we're reading comics. Because we're not super.
Yeah. Like,
obviously, if you read every single origin story for every comic book ever, there would be some similarities because you have to have an inciting incident that would cause a normal person to not be normal.
Yes, and then they cross the threshold into the unknown. It's basic storytelling, and you need it.
Yep.
I think one of the best descriptions of why comic books were important, especially before internet and just nonstop entertainment TV type stuff. If any of you guys watch Young Sheldon, by chance,
no.
Actually, if you guys haven't watched Young Sheldon, you should. If you like Big Bang Theory at all, and anyone who's watching, Young Sheldon is awesome. Like, I actually think it's better than Big Bang Theory.
Really?
Alan, I have the first full season. I can give it to you, and you can watch it.
Of Sheldon, here's the thing with the Big Bang Theory. I thought season 1 was clever, and it very, very quickly became formulaic. I think I finished season 3, and I was just like, I'm not laughing anymore, and then so I stopped.
We're getting on kind of a tangent here because I said it, but season 1, like, I can, if you guys want it, I have it. I can, share it with you guys, and you guys can watch season 1. You will really like it. It's got some of the Big Bang Theory humor, but really it's just like a normal family growing up with a genius child. Like like Sheldon, just a
yeah.
genius kid. Dad's a football coach. Mom, I find
don't relate to him at all.
It doesn't relate with him at all. She's super religious. Alan, you know my mother.
Yes, she's your mom.
Yeah, 100% down to the whole like.
I would watch a show just about
Jesus
your mom.
is in the grits and eggs. That's my mom. Okay, my mom is uber religious. I love her to death, but oh my gosh, like that's so. Anyway, but it's really really good. But there's an episode in there where Sheldon is reading. Going back to the original point, Sheldon's reading a comic book. He finds what comic books are. He's like 6 or 7 at the time in high school. And obviously he's a 7-year-old in high school. And so there's a whole bunch of challenges, social and just kind of
and
around
puberty.
Right. And so he opens up the comic book.
My body is going through changes. And that's
he's not quite there.
Comics are telling me that it's a cool thing.
He's only 7 at this point in the show. And he says what you said. He says, I started reading comic books, even though they're for kids. And it's I can't remember the name of the actor who plays Sheldon Cooper in Big Bang Theory, but he does the overture voice of this one. And he says, the actual adult actor. And so he says, because it's, he's kind of telling his story. So he says, I can't, like, they're for kids. I get that. But the reason why I attached to them is because, and he said specifically the X-Men. And that's why I bring this up, because in the episode he says specifically the X-Men is it was a bunch of super gifted kids that were being cast out of society, or society didn't like them, society didn't want them, society didn't understand them, and they're able to create something super. And that's the same thing. When we were reading comic books as kids, it's not because, sometimes, sure, the storytelling's phenomenal and the art's fun and stuff, but it is that. It's that whole you're grasping onto. And that's why people like superhero movies, or just hero movies in general. We like to put ourselves in the shoes of being the hero. We like to live that fantasy.
It's escapism.
Yeah, it's escapism. Yeah. And so when they're saying, when they're bringing up this point, it just goes like
it gets worse.
I despair. I really do. When this is what kids these days are reading.
Well, what's funny is like Screen Rant pretends to be like pro nerd. They are advertised as, hey, we're the nerdy guys and we write about nerdy things, when all this is doing is showing that they hate nerds. This is a corporate, like, wolf in sheep's clothing that clearly does not enjoy the medium at all and is just writing listicles to get clicks.
Yep. That's evidenced too by the Star Wars debacle, the two conflicting articles. I
also just saw this. Even Stan Lee admitted Spider-Man would be hated by real-world heroes. And
that sounds like a bad take too.
That sounds like a really bad take that we'll save for later.
Finish this article.
Let's continue.
Please.
Let's continue. That is interesting to hear about young Sheldon, though. I didn't know anyone was watching the show because I wasn't a big fan of The Big Bang Theory. But
I'll give you the first season, and they're short episodes. Sure. I think you'll like it. It's not like Big Bang Theory.
I will give it a shot.
It's very good.
Okay. To continue, while Stan Lee and Jack Kirby are both credited with the X-Men's creation, it was Lee who stumbled upon the idea of mutants. In X-Men, the official guide, Lee writes his idea. Guaranteed I'd never have to worry about explaining the origin of a superpower again. It hit me when I thought of the word mutant. We all know that mutations occur in nature for no apparent reason. A frog would be born with 3 legs, or a banana would be the size of a watermelon, or a child prodigy would have the ability to play Mozart at the age of 3. And the beautiful things about such mutations is that they don't require an explanation. They can happen to anyone. So this is the crux of their argument, that he created a way to make new superheroes without having to give a new origin story, because he created a new origin story, which was super unique.
Not only was it super unique, but it was
so
brilliant.
The crux of their argument is invalidated by the crux of their argument. The X-Men were quickly created after that, and Lee decided to go against cliches.
And now they're complimenting his writing.
And Lee decided to be original with certain characters.
Yep.
Professor X, though confined to a wheelchair, was one of the strongest telepaths alive, and the team's leader. They have a diverse team, and this is a bad thing, apparently. The physically imposing beast was the most literate of the group, and Iceman. And as for Iceman, Lee included him simply because he was a fan of the Fantastic Four's Human Torch and wanted to have the opposite on his team.
So their conclusion,
hence he can make snow, but like this makes him lazy.
Right.
This is genius.
I want to point out the final sentence here.
Hey, I'll read. Okay.
Okay.
The X-Men would eventually become stand-ins for all persecuted groups. The team of mutants would be hated and feared by most of the Marvel universe for their differences. It's notable then that Lee didn't have that plot thread in mind when creating the X-Men. The mutant aspect of the team was simply introduced to solve a writing issue. Stan Lee's laziness ended up creating the beloved and powerful X-Men, and the world is better for it.
So, from that, tonally, and obviously the title is meant to be clickbait to get people to be like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I think they're trying to get away with being like, look, Stan Lee, even at his laziness, came up with some killer ideas. But
they only say that in the last sentence.
Yeah, it's because they're bad writers. And like I've heard better takes critiquing literature from the 10th graders that I teach.
Yeah.
Without getting political, I feel like this is a new type of instead of society rising up to the level of heroes, they want to bring heroes down to our level.
Yeah.
They
don't want in general. It's not just superheroes that are a problem. They don't want stories to be fantastical anymore.
Right.
If you look at the movies that the Hollywood's pumping out, like they want everything to be completely representative of today's reality, which is not the reason why we watch movies.
Right.
We watch movies to escape.
And when you take the comic book industry is where it is today, and arguably everything that goes along with the comic book industry, from Comic-Con, video games, movies, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, DC, all that stuff. It is where it is today because of Stan Lee. Nobody can argue that. Anyone who argues that's an idiot. And was Stan Lee human? Sure. Did Stan Lee have imperfections? Sure. He was the first.
Was Stan Lee lazy?
Was Stan Lee lazy?
No.
Heck no. No, he wasn't lazy. So
What?
why are we allowing, and I guess again, without getting political, but it's a common thing. You see, like, for example, George Washington. I grew up, I'm sure we're all kind of the same age. We all grew up, George Washington was this, he's the father of the United States, yada, yada. And recently he was this evil, awful, terrible person. He wasn't perfect. He did this and that.
They just
tore down the level of the hero.
They just tore down statues of George Washington.
Right. And instead of rising to the level of the hero, instead of being like, Stan Lee is someone that we need to aspire to be like. If you're a writer, if you're a comic book artist, if you're someone who wants to do this, Stan Lee needs to be the level of glory you need to try to achieve. Instead, it's let's pull Stan Lee down, let's pull George Washington down, let's pull Abraham Lincoln, let's pull George Lucas, let's pull Spielberg, let's pull these people down to our level so it makes us feel good. And that's
they pulled down statues of Abraham Lincoln too. The guy who freed the slaves.
Yeah, they're bashing him, but again, It's this new concept of let's take down heroes and make them normal people. And I get where that comes from. Because Stan Lee was a normal person. Did he have lazy days? Sure he did. We've all got lazy days. But that doesn't mean, on the other flip side, it doesn't mean we need to deify him. I don't deify Stan Lee by any stretch of the imagination. But he is someone that I look to and I go, now that was someone who achieved greatness and I want to be like him, rather than, oh, Stan Lee's like me because he had lazy days. I've just seen this type of article.
Any of us would be lucky to achieve a fragment of Stan Lee's success.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And Jacob makes a really interesting point, which really echoes what you're saying. And I'm covering your face to do it. It is easy for them to say this now that Stan Lee can't defend himself.
Yes.
This article would not have existed 2 years ago. When did Stan Lee die?
I think it was 2018, maybe 2019.
Was it that long ago? Goodness.
Yeah,
it's been a while because he did a couple he recorded a couple cameos.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
That were in stock right before he died. So it's been longer than it feels like. There is no way on earth that this article could have existed while he was alive, because if like, you would get slapped so hard for saying
I like, even what he's saying in the quote where they're like, oh, he said he came up with a brilliant overarching solution to the
their explanation of why it's lazy proves that it wasn't lazy. Like, he was trying to come up with a new way of doing it that wouldn't feel cliche.
Exactly.
That's the opposite of what you're saying it is.
With an entire universe. And people say, that the Marvel and X-Men universe, they're the same. They're not. If you go back, they're not the same universe. They're completely two different alternate universes. They kind of crossed over here and there. Yes. But he came up with an entirely different universe. That is not lazy. That's like saying George R.R. Martin wrote Game of Thrones and he's going to write a prequel because he's lazy. Like, that's what it would be. Like, J.R.R. Tolkien, he wrote Lord of the Rings
current series.
He is lazy because he wrote The Hobbit. And
the correct way to say that is George R.R. Martin is writing a prequel because he doesn't know how to finish his original series.
I was just using that as an example. It was a bad example. I know I could rip him all day. Good Lord, you had 8 years to finish a book. Like that, they actually
spent longer than 8 years, Corwin.
No, I'm saying when they started Game of Thrones movie series, the TV series, I just read an article. I just read or saw an interview of making it.
It's funny that you bring this up because he just barely announced that he's not anywhere close to finishing Winds of Winter.
Yeah, and that's why I started reading. I went down the rabbit hole. And they said, the TV writers said, they were like, we started it. We figured we had 8 years for him to write 2 books, right? He was like, we figured we had 8 years for him to finish the last book before we had to start working on the last season.
He had already been working on it.
Do you have anything? And he's like, no, I've got nothing. Like,
he had already been working on the second to last book for a couple of years when they started.
So they thought they were in the clear. They were like, we're going to be good. We'll be fine.
He should finish the penultimate book, when we're maybe 3 seasons in, and then he'll have the rest of the time to finish the last one. Yeah. The showrunners made a lot of mistakes in the last seasons, but I also feel pretty bad for them.
Oh yeah.
They thought they could have done well, but they are also to blame, though, because they completely gave up.
But I guess I'll just use the J.R.R. Tolkien then. J.R.R. Tolkien is lazy because he wrote Lord of the Rings trilogy and then decided to write The Hobbit.
The Silmarillion. No,
the Hobbit came first.
Whoa. Well, I'm going to lose subscribers, Corwin. He wrote The Hobbit, and then he wrote The Lord of the Rings, and then the Silmarillion.
So reverse it. He's lazy because he wrote Lord of the Rings and not creating a new universe after he wrote The Hobbit.
He's lazy for creating more stuff for us.
Right, and that's what their argument is. He's lazy because he created an entire universe where he could create more heroes. He's lazy for that. Go, just jump off a cliff.
Yeah.
If I could chime in, I got 2 thoughts here, and I'll start kind of with with how we deify people and bringing them down, especially me teaching young people. I do see that a lot. They see people like on YouTube and they're like, oh, I can just do that and it'll be fine. And they don't think about like the greater implications of the hard work that takes, even though a lot of the YouTubers they watch are stupid and are bad entertainers.
You're right.
And I definitely think we need to hold things to a higher standard. But I think kind of on the thoughts of especially historical figures who lived in a different time than we did, and things were different back then.
Yes.
There's a epic rap battle.
The same morals that we had.
Yeah. There's a ERB between Thomas Jefferson and what's his name?
I think I've seen that one.
Yeah, it's Thomas Jefferson, and then
isn't it like Obama or something like that?
No, it's not Obama. It's why can't I think of his name? Frederick Douglass.
Okay.
And Frederick Douglass's last line to Thomas Jefferson is like, "You did a ton of great stuff, but there's things that we don't talk about, and we should put an asterisk next to your name." And I think George Washington, Abraham Lincoln did do great things, but in the times they lived in, some of the stuff isn't what we would consider.
Yeah, and we can't hold them.
But we can't hold them. It was a condition of their time. The second thing that I wanted to say is, in my life, I've seen people who like pay money to meet celebrities at Comic-Con, and there have been two people who I said that I would want to do that with, and one of them was Stanley.
And how many of those people that have ever been paid money to receive a signature, how many of them do you think was solicited more than Stan Lee for that?
None of them.
Yeah. Good answer, because it wouldn't even be close.
No.
Jacob Ironside commented.
Tolkien is lazy for making up several complete languages phonetically and scripturally. Is that how you'd say that? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, so lazy. Like, why can't you just learn the languages that are already established, man? You got to just make up your own fake language? Goodness.
I think
there's also
an individual. When I was living in Mexico, when me and Alan were on missions in Mexico, I met an individual, and he was an amazing man to talk to and to listen to. He had lived an extraordinary life, and he told me something. He was very, very rich, and he was living in Puerto Vallarta. And he told me something. He said, we can never achieve perfection, but in our pursuit to achieve perfection, we reach a state of excellence. And I've kind of lived.
That's a good quote.
When he said that, I was like, holy crap. I could go on for hours about that gentleman, but yeah.
I prefer, you're never going to be perfect, so why try? That's my philosophy.
There you go. But that's the point. Like, was Stanley perfect? No. But in his pursuit of being the best, of being the perfect comic book artist, he reached a state of excellence. And I think that just goes for life. In your pursuit of perfection, you'll never reach perfection, but you will reach a state of excellence. And that goes just for anyone, like we were talking about. George Washington, Lincoln, Jefferson, they were not perfect, no, but they reached a state of excellence. And I think that people you created X-Men out of laziness. Just jump off a cliff.
Well, and I think there's definitely an element of pleasure in tearing down someone who was great because you've personally not accomplished anything in your life.
Yeah.
Like if I can take down Stan Lee, who did all these cool things, then my life definitely has some meaning.
Who can't defend himself because he's dead? Yeah.
I definitely haven't wasted my entire life writing top 10 listicles and word salad articles. If I can take down Stan Lee, then I'm better than him.